Can you imagine living in a place where you can get girls from vending machines, or where you have to live in a coffin-sized room? This is the dark side of Japan. Everybody knows that the Japanese love their vending machines, but this next fact will shock you. Did you know that they have a vending machine that sells love in a can? That's right. There's a new set of vending machines in Tokyo Kamata that sells love for only the low price of 3,000 yen or $25. These vending machines are managed by a company called Matching Advisor Press, MAP, which is a Japanese omiai coordinator or arranged marriage coordinator. They usually cater to people who are looking for a serious relationship. To reach the vending machines, you need to enter and find it hidden behind the usual drink machines up front. Inside the machines, there will be two different cans, beige and pink. The pink ones represent women seeking love, while the beige ones are for men. On each can, you'll find the description of each person, including their ages. But buying one doesn't necessarily mean you'll get a date, but rather a 1-hour meeting with an advisor from the matchmaking company. From the meeting, the advisor will determine whether or not you will be compatible with the person you've chosen. If they deem you worthy, they'll set you up on a date that will cost you another 9,000 yen or $77.68. If the date is successful and you plan to get married to your chosen can, you'll be charged another additional 300,000 yen or $2,617 by MAP for finally finding your true love. Would you like to try finding your love this way? Drop a comment below. Another Japanese obsession, along with vending machines, is canned food. Japan has the most diverse canned food production globally. Out of the 1,200 products available worldwide, 800 of these canned foods originated in Japan. That means they control 2/3 of the market. Some of the most unusual products are soft bread and konchu tsukudani, or boiled insects in soy sauce. Try them at your own risk. While convenient, this option might not be the healthiest choice. It's also typical to see Japanese restaurants that specialize in offering only canned foods. These restaurants are where you'll find some of the rarest and finest canned foods. But don't expect a fine dining experience, as you'll likely be enjoying the meals inside a cramped store. Have you seen something like this in your country? Japanese trains are so packed that they hire staff whose main duty is to push passengers into the already crowded trains. This is because the rail system is the most popular form of transportation, handling 40 million passengers daily. During peak hours, the trains typically operate at 200% over capacity due to the overwhelming number of passengers. These osha or pushers were initially hired in Tokyo's Shinjuku station as part-time employees. If you want to spot them, they often wear white gloves to prevent direct contact with the passengers. Also, I have to mention that Japan is famous for being one of the most punctual countries in the world. Even their trains are among the world's most punctual, with average delays of just 18 seconds. Instances of trains running late are so uncommon that they issue chien shomeisho, or certificates of lateness for passengers, as proof to avoid penalties at work or school. This means the Japanese can't really use trains as an excuse. Did you know that Japan has the lowest number of homeless people in the world at almost 0%? According to a government study, there are only 3,065 homeless people in Japan in the country's parks and riverside areas. Compared to Japan's total population of 125 million people, this is a much lower number than other nations have. This might be due to Japan's policies, which are meant to minimize the number of homeless people as much as possible. For example, begging on the streets of Japan is forbidden by law. Big cities like Tokyo also adopt hostile architectures, such as benches with bars or dividing handrests to prevent people from lying down or resting on them for a long time. They also have a very good healthcare system, so people who have mental health issues are being taken care of properly. Aside from that, homelessness is very frowned upon and stigmatized by Japanese culture. That's why most homeless people try to stay hidden to avoid being judged by society. Another harsh reality is that the statistics did not include people who are barely hanging on in Japan. the cyber homeless, or the net cafe refugees. Thousands of people are using the internet and manga cafes as a form of alternative housing. These are tiny, quiet cubicles equipped with a computer and a chair. The refugees are mainly those with low-paid jobs, unable to rent actual apartments or houses. This issue started during the late 1990s, when Japan experienced economic malaise with the highest unemployment rate in the country's history. Throughout the ages, the number of net refugees continues to increase, with over 4,000 dwellers in Tokyo only. This means that there might be some inaccuracies in Japan's homelessness rate, and the truth is far worse than the statistics. Although Tokyo is considered one of the biggest metropolises in the world, the city manages to keep the housing crisis at bay. It has successfully increased house stock more quickly than other capital cities in the world. Tokyo also kept everything relatively affordable for its citizens. To put things into perspective, in downtown areas of Tokyo, the rent price of a one-bedroom apartment is around 80,000 yen or $500. Compare that to the sky-high prices of Manhattan that could reach as expensive as $4,000 for the same thing. How did Tokyo solve its housing issue? Well, for one, the city has loosely defined zones that allow housing development to expand as much as possible. The city can react accordingly whenever there's a demand and build quickly to provide housing. Secondly, the houses and apartments aren't built to last due to frequent earthquakes, so they're very cheaply made. The apartments are also relatively small compared to the standards of other metropolitan areas, making them much more affordable. Japan also doesn't have NIMBYism, or not in my backyard-ism. Residents of the city don't have the right to state objections whenever developments in their areas are being built. But Tokyo's success also comes at a cost. Due to the low prices and temporary nature of the buildings, the residents are unable to use property as investments, unlike other developed countries. There's also less effort to protect architecturally or culturally important sites and buildings, invoking protests from Tokyoites. For example, dozens of 100-year-old ginkgo trees were to be destroyed in the historic Jingugayan to make room for a 200-meter skyscraper. Previously, a quaint and historic Harajuku train station was also demolished for a bigger station. Loneliness is a concept that's all too familiar in Japan, with over 1.5 million people withdrawing from society and leading reclusive lives as hikikomori. But one thing that can make the situation even worse is if you're a foreigner. There are a few reasons why it's hard for foreigners to be accepted in Japanese society. The first reason is the gaijin card. The gaijin card means that no matter how hard you try to assimilate yourself into the culture, you'll always be seen as an outsider or others. No matter how close you are to a Japanese person, they'll never stop calling you one. Japanese people are also prone to giving constant praise by complimenting you for doing simple tasks like using chopsticks. Foreigners often see these as backhanded compliments or microaggressions that lead to awkwardness. Locals are also more reluctant to speak in foreign languages, as Japan is used to being a mono-ethnic society. Most believe that this is due to their history of isolationist policy, or sokaku, that lasted for over 200 years in the 17th to 19th centuries. So the Japanese are still getting used to socializing with foreigners. The dynamic between Japanese and foreigners is called iwakan, a feeling of extreme discomfort from incompatibility. The good news is that the country is finally trying to get more diversified than ever. Japan realizes its population is decreasing at an alarming rate, so it's going to be facing a labor shortage sooner rather than later. So the government has decided to welcome more foreigners to its workforce through various policies to solve this issue, creating a much more diverse and inclusive society. Tokyo is a relatively safe city, but that's not the case for one part of the city called Shinjuku Kabukicho. The zone is dubbed as the most dangerous area in Tokyo, as there are plenty of restaurants and ripoffs. Kabukicho is located in the northeast of Shinjuku, and it's the largest red light district in Asia. The area has many bars, restaurants, karaoke, and clubs. It's also where you'll find underworld establishments, so it's not odd to see riot police patrolling around in the district. If you're a tourist, you might want to avoid this area. When you step onto the streets of Kabukicho, you'll be greeted by people asking you to visit their clubs. Once you follow them, they'll serve you many different drinks without even saying anything. After you're done, you'll be given an outrageous bill for overpriced drinks that can cost thousands of dollars. That's not even the worst case. Some tourists and victims were also reported to have been drugged when drinking at one of the nightclubs. This will leave them vulnerable to robbery or other criminal activities. Can you imagine sleeping inside a room the size of a coffin? For some Japanese workers, especially women, that's the only option. Japan is known for having a terrible work-life balance and often normalizes overtime as something compulsory for its workers. Japanese employees work significantly longer hours than other developed nations such as the US, Britain, Singapore, and Hong Kong. Sometimes their working hours are so late that these workers are then forced to stay at nearby capsule hotels instead of going home. Capsule hotels are affordable and tiny accommodations you can find in the middle of the city that cater to salarymen or women who have to work late. The rooms are tiny plastic cubicles stacked in rows by the dozens, with only 6 feet deep by 3 feet wide. Each of the capsules is equipped with a mattress, a thin sheet, a pillow, and a small TV if you're lucky. Usually, capsule hotels will only serve one gender, and most capsule hotels are for men. Thankfully, there's a growing number of capsule hotels that offer their services for women as more female workers are working later than ever. Capsule hotels are not very comfortable though. Dwellers will have a hard time sleeping with echoes of other people talking, alarm clocks, and snores. It's a wonder whether or not these workers can get enough sleep before waking up the next morning just to go back to the office and work again. One more stressful fact about Japan is its frequent seismic activity. Due to its natural environment, Japan experiences around 1,500 earthquakes each year. That's roughly 4 earthquakes a day. The country is situated in a seismically active zone known as the Ring of Fire, where numerous volcanoes are located. While this provides them with fertile land, it also leads to frequent earthquakes. These can vary from mild tremors to catastrophic events with serious impacts. Approximately 6 or 7 quakes per year reach a 5 on the Richter scale or higher. In addition to earthquakes, this also leads to other disasters like tsunamis. Fortunately, the government has established comprehensive guidelines to ensure the safety of all citizens during natural disasters. Did you know that gambling is illegal in Japan? So why do pachinko parlors still exist? Pachinko parlors are venues with pachinko machines that function similarly to slot machines. You insert cash or a card and receive a number of balls to launch onto various obstacles to earn scores. The game became so popular that it reached a valuation of 30 trillion yen, or $300 billion at its peak in the early 2000s. The reason pachinko can still operate is that the parlors now exchange balls for prizes and tokens instead of cash. Let's hope Japan can cut back on its workaholic culture so that its workers can get the rest they deserve. Hidden in Japan's gleaming cities and rich cultural history lies the dark side of the country many are not familiar with. From love vending machines to cyber homelessness, Japan's hardships reveal a complex and unsettling picture that's far from ideal. Only by embracing and understanding these hidden aspects can we truly appreciate the depth and resilience of Japanese society.